I've found the next watch that you are going to be obsessed with. Hi there everyone, I'm here today with
Rafael Abeillon.
Rafael Abeillon from
Alto Watches.
Alto Watches. We are here with Alto today in the Time+Tide London studio to discover two watches that came out about a month ago now.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago now, sorry. And then one watch which is coming out, well, hopefully today, very, very soon when this video is released.
Absolutely.
So it's coming out in the future while we're recording this, but we'll discover that watch in a second. Rafael, introduce yourself to our audience very quickly. You've got a storied past in watches, and you've got an interesting role here at Alto as well.
So hi, I'm Rafael Abeillon. So I'm the new creative director for Alto. I actually left Cartier, where I used to design watches for 12 years last summer, and come from like 150 years of watch history at Cartier to reinvent and project into the future to an almost blank page where everything is yet to be written.
Yeah, you've gone from 150 years old to about 150 days old.
Absolutely.
It's a very, very different challenge for you, I can imagine.
Indeed.
So tell me, what first attracted you to Alto? When you first met Thibaut, you first saw this angular, sort of weird crystal, the funky dial. What attracted you?
Well, first with Thibaut, the founder of Alto, we know each other for almost 15 years. We share the same passion about historic motor racing, so we have a common cultural ground. So the design first was appealing, and when you look at it, it's a shaped watch, and I used to play with shapes a lot. And to come from already existing shapes to something that looks like no other watches was something really exciting for me, a real challenge.
And so to you, what makes Alto stand out? Because there's a few brands that have launched in the last couple of years which are doing shaped watches, and we've had them in this studio. So what makes you stand out compared to them?
Well, Alto is, in my sense, a watch that gives a lot of attention to volume, and overall, when you look at the watch, it's an octagon which is developed in space, which is topped by a sapphire, which is both curved and beveled, which is a world premiere. So every single detail is crafted to be coherent. When you turn the watch upside down and you look at the movement with the open case back, I mean, also the movement is so nicely designed. So it's an amazing playground for a designer to play with.
I want to touch on that movement that you just mentioned. It's been specially designed for Alto, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
So explain a bit more to me, to our viewers, what makes this movement special?
It's a 4 millimeter thick micro-rotor movement, in-house designed by the Cercle des Horlogers in Les Hauts-de-Genève in Switzerland, which is a shaped movement, and this movement fits. It's an octagonal movement, 48 hours of power reserve, and the design of the movement, I mean, it has to be in the same vibe than the overall watch. So based on this culture of design, and when you look at the wedge design of the 70s, so the concept cars, the Maserati Boomerang, the Alfa Romeo Carabo, and when you look at the race cars from the 70s, and here's the Porsche 908 03, and you look at the structure that hold the technical parts, it has also an attention, and I mean, this whole structure is very sculptural, and also like bring together the old design. So for me, and I used to do that in my past too. So the beauty of the movement is as important as the technical specs.
One question for you. Why does the second hand run backwards?
The second hand running backward is the idea of the shiftability of time, or the fact that the time, I mean, your memory, fuel your future. Yeah. And this is an approach of time that had been a lot explored by Christopher Nolan in his movies. So yeah, it's some kind of tribute to that part of art, which is Christopher Nolan's cinema. Even when it comes to the movement, it has to be technical yet beautiful.
Absolutely. So one more question about this movement for you. Why is it not COSC certified yet?
The whole attention on the movement is on aesthetics. So you don't have to put aside the technical aspect and the watchmaking aspect of a movement, but also, of course, it tells the time. It tells the time precisely. But we didn't go into COSC because the main idea of this movement is to be fulfilling the overall design.
Interesting. Look, you've passed your test. I've talked to you about what happened at Alto before you joined. Now let's talk about Alto after you joined, and let's talk about these two monochrome editions. So what were the challenges that you faced in turning the original Alto Art 1 into these two new monochrome editions?
So in my sense, and that's my vision about design and watch design, is that every creation has to tell a story. So, I mean, working for a company with 150 years of history is something, and bring the past into the future. But now, how to tell new stories based on something that was just born. So it's a black and titanium watch, which once again gives a lot of attention to volume. So I said, okay, let's completely simplify graphically the design and come up and distill the essence of what the first one was, and come from a watch which was black and gray to two pieces, one full black and one full gray, in a total simplification. So made them sandblasted to really even clean the structure of the
Tones
pattern.
just stay the same across everything.
And so like really create this overall monochrome watches. So the black is black, so black case, which is the titanium and DLC, to preserve the nice properties of the material. Then black strap and black dial. But when it comes to gray, the base was the gray of the titanium, because I wanted to be raw titanium. So the color of the gray on the overall monochrome gray edition is titanium gray, which is this warm gray. So the base was the color of the case, titanium, but then you have to make everything match, and harmony and simplicity is not really easy to achieve, because you have to find the right shades of gray to match. I mean, the dial, find the perfect gray that goes under the crystal, the strap, because every material absorb and reflect the light differently. So to come up with an overall watch that looks simply gray, it's not that simple.
Not. Which is your favorite, black or gray?
I have to say, I really like the gray, because first, on a design point of view, it was more challenging. I mean, to achieve this monochrome thing. And for me, it has something which is really monolithic, really brutalist, almost concrete-like architecture. So I really love the gray.
And when I first saw the black, when I came to see you in Paris, it really brought to mind the Vanta Black Moser from a couple of years ago. You remember that watch?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the display where it just sort of disappeared. And that seems to have that Vanta Black quality of just being a stealth bomber. Like there's nothing, you don't see it coming, and then all of a sudden it's there. And
it reveals itself as it moves, because you have a lot of refraction games on this watch. So you don't see it overall at once.
You don't. Now, talking about playing with lights, the new model, Falcon's Eye. Tell me about this.
My idea was, as we pay a lot of attention to volume, what if we could craft the volume of our dial in stone? And in my sense, the pattern on the dial with the concentric hexagon evoke an eye to me, like a geometrical eye. And so I wanted to say, okay, what if I take this idea of an eye, use an eye, which is the Falcon's Eye, and create a stone marquetry dial in volume for the first time. And so I decided to challenge the people that are actually crafting stone and say, okay, I know a silly idea, but take a seat. And most of them said, we won't even try because it's not feasible. And one guy that I used to work with said, okay, we can try. We don't promise anything, but we can try. And after 6 months, I mean, the watch is finally here. But it wasn't the only challenge, because to evoke an eye, I said, okay, it's a stone with a lot of different shades. So I wanted to have a gradient with the darker shades of the stone in the center to create a gradient that evocates the eye. Plus, on every part of the stone, I wanted the fiber of the stone to look toward the center to create this evocation of an iris. So it's a really challenging, because the stone is very fragile, and to have it as slim and as volumic in the same time, it's a huge complexity.
I can see why those dial makers said no to you originally.
But in the end, what's the fun? And it's very interesting to find people that are willing to accept the challenge, because together we actually learn to do something new.
Amazing. Now, like I said earlier, there are a few other brands that are coming out at the moment that do shaped watches and are doing them in this sort of fun, very design-orientated way. Is there a brand, is there a watch or a model that you find yourselves getting compared to more than any other at the moment?
Well, I mean, brutalism in watchmaking, and you've had Phil and Alfred a few weeks ago.
Yeah, they were stood right here, in fact.
It's kind of a similar approach, but in the same time very different. There are similarities, so you can have a collection with a lot of common points, but also differences. So it's very interesting to see the common and the differences.
And they're doing faceted crystals now as well, just like you guys.
I saw. I know. I saw Phil in New York during our ball tour. He was very proud of it.
I'm sure he was. Now, the one thing that gets mentioned to me whenever I'm talking about Alto to other people, and this conversation of the other design-led brands comes up, is that Alto is markedly more expensive than them. Why?
First, the micro-rotor movement. So it's a movement which is designed specially for Alto, and to develop and produce a movement which is an in-house movement created specially for a watch, that has a cost. Plus, you've noticed that the second hand is running backward.
Yeah.
So there is also another complexity that you have to add to the movement. So a few technical innovations. The crystal on itself, the top crystal, is curved and beveled. Plus, it's hemispherical on the inside. I mean, so not being too technical, but there are a lot of technical elements in this crystal, which makes it complicated, so expensive to produce. So there are a lot of things, and Alto is a very purist idea of what this watch has to be. So the more tiny you go into the details, the more expensive it is.
Of course. Look, Rafael, I think that's all I want to know about this watch. What I want to know now is, guys, you just watched this video, you just watched Rafael talk about Alto and the new watches that are coming out with such passion. Do you have any questions for him? What are your thoughts? Let us know down in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.